got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to another episode of Trending Fantasy. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. You know I'm joined by Mitch Sorensen at DynoMC. Mitch, we know that a lot of rookie drafts, they are winding down. The last couple of weeks, we've really spent a lot of time focusing on rookies. This past week on Dynasty Theory, Dan and I started to dive back into the veterans. But now's kind of that tricky part of the year. Rookie drafts are winding down. Like I said, they're wrapping up. And now it's time to kind of put yourself in a situation for that next step throughout the offseason. But this is the challenging time. Trying to trade post-rookie draft, especially when rookies are involved in those trades. So right now, let's say your rookie draft, it's over with. What issues are you running into besides the obvious, which I just mentioned?
Yeah, I think you hit the big part. Something else that constantly happens, everyone kind of comes back for the rookie drafts and they are like actively trying to make their teams better at that point. The second that rookie draft is over, you won't hear from these managers again until August. You could send them all the trades you want. There's just some that won't even answer the trades unless you send them like an absolutely smash offer. So this time of year, like you said, is really hard. But I know this is a rookie draft trading show, but one thing that I really do this time of year, this is like, I think the greatest time to join a startup. And the reason for that is, that we have like OTAs that are happening, but players aren't really doing a lot. So you don't have to worry about injuries. You might have to worry about a couple off the field issues with a player or two. But for the most part, these values that we have now really aren't going to change a lot until August. So I think this is like the best time to where if you're having a hard time getting trades done in your leagues, go join a startup because you have that 3-week period during the startup. You could concentrate on that team and maybe we get some more news at that point.
The only thing I'll say, and I mean, obviously it's going to start to quiet down a little bit, especially like end of May, June, it can be a really challenging time because like you said, a lot of people, they're not tapped in the way we are, the way the rest of the DD fantasy football community is. Hey, make sure you check it out, ddfantasyfootball.com. Episode description below, there's the link. Use code THEORY, 50% off. Cross-positional tiers, War Machine, Trinity Tool, and an incredible Discord community. And while you're down, look at the description, hit that like button, and I know you're already subscribed. But one thing that kind of stands out, and you mentioned a lot of people, they're looking to make their team better during the rookie draft, kind of maneuver around, make trades. The one thing I will say is post-rookie draft, you have managers that maybe missed out on a certain position. And I think this year, it's the quarterback position.
Yes. It's
the tight end position. Because we have, there's 6 running backs going in the first rounds that people are really excited about. You know, you have the Ohio State backs, you got Genty, you got Hampton, Harvey, Caleb Johnson. So those are kind of the guys that people are spending a lot of time and efforts on improving their running back rooms. But if you miss out on Ward, and then a lot of people would say, I don't care if I miss out on Dart, but if you do, or the 2 tight ends, now you have to position yourself to improve your roster another way. And I mean, full disclosure, we kind of did this during the rookie draft, it wasn't after, but in our run and gun league. I advocated, and if anybody from that league is listening to this, well, we lose all leverage, not that we had much to begin with, but we drafted Tyler Warren. And then immediately after, I was like, all right, what if we send this off route?
Will anyone take him off our hands?
We were trying to remedy that situation. A lot of people do it after the rookie draft, but we were doing it basically 1 pick after, and kind of going hand in hand with that. What tips do you have for people trying to trade either for or away rookies right now that they may have just drafted?
So one big thing is you got to look at the teams that acquired those players, because if someone only had one running back, they went and drafted Travion Henderson. You're like, hey, I want Travion Henderson. I like him a lot. It is going to take so much to get a player like that. What I think the best players to attack right now are the wide receivers, the Burden, Tre Harris, Williams, whoever you really like. Those are the good guys to attack because everyone has some wide receivers on their roster. So they could see one of these rookies leaving for maybe a veteran that you want to trade away, a 26 rookie pick. I think that's a lot easier than going, and I talked about in the Discord, I think RJ Harvey is a guy you could go and get right now because I think even someone like me who really, really likes him, who was really high on him, I also realize that the floor is there with Harvey. And that dynasty floor, if he doesn't do well, that floor just falls out and his value is going to tank. So I'm willing to move a guy like that, but trying to get a Genty, Hunter, McMillan, those kind of guys, it's going to be extremely hard. So I think attacking the guys that are more in the second round, I think it's more attainable.
Now, kind of showing you how the sausage is made in our show notes, especially trending, I put my random thoughts, or what was it last week, Mitch? It was like John's word vomit or something.
Yes.
So I spew things throughout, we kick off the show notes a couple days prior to putting together the episode on a weekly basis, and something pops in my head and I just add it. So enjoy some of these random thoughts, or absolutely hate them, and then you can yell at me later. Target teams with positional needs. This is something not just for rookies, but veterans as well. They might be more willing to move off of a rookie they just drafted because they weren't able to land somebody they may have wanted. So let's say they have that Caleb Johnson, but they really wanted that Tyler Warren or that Colston Loveland because it's a heavy tight end premium league, and they thought they could have gotten them at that 109, 110, 111, and they didn't. Maybe Caleb Johnson is somebody that you could go out and acquire. Review your rookie draft to see which players went well above market. If they did, Mitch, in our one league, RJ Harvey went 103.
Yeah, that was insane.
In a 12-team super flex, very minimal tight end premium, we're not going to make an offer for RJ Harvey. If they go well below market, there might be an opportunity to acquire that player, even if you have to come up to market, but you believe that value is going to increase. So I think it's far more likely you can do that, where maybe a player like Luther Burden slipped a little bit and the folks in your league weren't really loving him. There might be an opportunity there. Check to see, like I just made the Luther Burden call out. Check to see if anybody was actively trying to move out of a certain pick in your chat. There's people, Mitch, they sit on that clock and they sit and they sit and they sit because they don't want to hit draft. If they're in your league chat and they're saying, hey, this pick's on the block, and ultimately they pick a player and now you're circling back and you see that could be somebody that you could acquire. And we could see that with players like Ibuka, Caleb Johnson, Golden, Scadaboo, and they felt like the player was there was a value, and they just had to take him. Any thoughts on those so far? Interrupt me here for a few moments.
No, you're great. I agree with all of those.
More.
Yeah, I agree with all those, to be honest. I mean, that's the biggest thing when it comes to trading is just looking at what the teams in your league do, because that's the best information that you're going to have. And then it's so hard once this is from startup and rookie drafts. Once someone hits that draft button, they're like, hey, I spent the 203 on this player. I don't care who the player is, but they're like, I spent the 203. I have to get value back that is better than that 203. And I mean, it happens constantly. I think closer to the season, you'll see people like, oh, you know what? I want to compete a little bit. I'm willing to move this Tre Harris for this more veteran wide receiver. I think you see that happen a little bit more. But right now, it's really hard once that player is drafted for someone to be like, you know what? I'll go ahead and move him for even the same value or a little bit less.
And I think that comes into play with when I mentioned if a player went well above market, don't try to even get them at the value they took them. But if they slip, like, hey, I took so-and-so at the 208, like you said, I needed at least that because if a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, we see in startups all the time. I'll never forget when we saw Robert Woods go in the first round of a startup.
I remember that. Yep, to this day.
Never going to go try to trade for Robert Woods in that situation. If you have a rookie that you're trying to move for whatever reason, and this goes just 24/7, 365, check the teams at the bottom of the power rankings over at dynastydaddy.com and the starter view. You can see there, hey, this team is not contending, but for some reason they still have a Derrick Henry or a Calvin Ridley, whoever the case may be. That's going to present a nice opportunity. And then this last thing I wanted to call out, and this is psychotic behavior. And it is more challenging now because on dynastydaddy.com, you have to go into the daddy club and you can't look at people's portfolios. In sleeper leagues, if I know Mitch is in 30 sleeper leagues, and I think that's around the mark you're at, because I actually, I
37 actually, but it's fine.
Okay. I looked you up and, I wanted to see, where do you have RJ Harvey? In what leagues? Like, you and I are in a league together, and I don't know who you are, and I want to trade for RJ Harvey. He went 110 in this draft, right around market, so I don't think there's anything alarming yet. But then I start to go through your leagues. Okay, you have him there. You have him there. You have him there. Now, again, you can't go into the portfolio view, but you can go league by league. Again, if you want to be a psychopath and you have the time, you can make an educated guess on whether or not that manager is going to be willing to move them. Now, if you're in 37 leagues and you have RJ Harvey in one, maybe you want to keep that one share, or maybe you just took him because there was, everybody else that you wanted has gone already.
Yeah, it's using Dynasty Daddy, I think, is just something that I think a lot of the DD fantasy community does. And I don't know how many people outside fully understand how good of a website it is and how it helps you out so much just to understand, hey, this team is lacking in this area. I'm good in this area. This should be an easier trade. I use Dynasty Daddy literally every single day. So that's a really, really good call out on this. I was going to ask you about this because the reason why we decided to do this, because we had to talk about Shedeur Sanders in the Discord. So when you see a rookie like Shedeur Sanders that should see a decent value bump, Tyler Shuck, who instantly saw a big value bump this past week, how do you go about trying, if you are willing to acquire those players, how do you go about it? Because it's so hard. I think one of the things that you run into, people are like, well, what's the ceiling on this player compared to what I spent? So let's say I have Tyler Shuck. I spent an early third round pick on him, and someone's like, hey, I'm going to give you a 26 second. I'm looking at their team and I think it's going to be pretty late. I'm like, that's a great price to get out of. And dynasty value, it's really good. But is he going to be worth more in 3 months? Am I gaining anything really by trading for that draft pick now? I think that's the hard part when it comes to these kinds of players.
You paused there for a second.
I did. I was thinking. I was formulating.
That's like me. I'll be talking, and I like to slow down for a little bit if possible. I gather my thoughts, and my wife, and maybe that's why I interrupt you and Dan all the time, because my wife will jump in when I'm talking.
So you got to make sure you get it. I get it.
Love you, Mar. Love you. But maybe that's why I try to get as many words in here as I can. I don't know. But anyway, if a player was going late second, third round, fourth round, and somebody's willing to give me a little bump now, I'm probably just going to hold.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. It has to be something like, why move him? Why should I not just wait for the ceiling? And there's players to where the bottom falls out and that ceiling never happens. But there's also times to where if it's a starting quarterback in the league, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks for one to end up being ranked quarterback 23 in September. Doesn't take a lot because, we have, 4 quarterback situations right now that are terrible in the league. That's before the season even starts. So when it comes to quarterbacks, I think it's just, you could sell yourself the narrative so easy and nah, it's worth it more to me just to hold on this player, even if I end up losing value 6 months from now.
And I think that's a really good point overall, and just the way you frame the question. we talk about second, third, fourth rounders, but maybe you have a very fragile roster. Maybe you're really not going to compete, but we'll just keep using RJ Harvey because he, from May 1st to May 11th on dynastydaddy.com, in 2 quarterback leagues, so these are some of the filters, 12 to 14 teams, and then no filter on tight end premium, so I left it wide open. I pulled the top 24 on KTC, and this was 3 days ago because we bumped the recording day here. Again, more sausage being made in the background. People can see that schedule. But I pulled the top 24. RJ Harvey had 122 trades in that subset. Shedeur Sanders had 49. Shedeur was Jalen Noel had 44. So Sanders and Noel, they were the lowest. RJ Harvey was the most. Genty, he was on the lower side, which makes sense. But let's say you took like an RJ Harvey, and he's a guy that's being traded a lot. And you're like, okay, somebody's offering me a 27 first, a 26 second, and Zach Charbonnet, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm not close to contending. Okay, that probably that makes a little bit more sense, especially if you took Harvey at 111, 112,
109, whatever. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is an opportunity. Yes, I could miss out on the ceiling, but my team, it's not in a situation to really be competitive, and I want these additional assets. So before we get on to the last question here, these rookies that I talked about, so RJ Harvey, Jackson Dart, Luther Burden, they were the most traded over that time frame. Is there anything that stands out to you with those 3 specifically?
No, I think it's probably kind of the most obvious guys, because the upper echelon ones, like we talked about, they don't get traded a lot because people wanted to draft them. RJ Harvey is the hype guy, so you have people being willing to get off of him. Jackson Dart's that Michael Penix from last year, to where you're probably not going to get points early in the season. So if I could get points from now, I'm willing to trade him. Makes sense. Luther Burden is a guy who we've talked about on Monday. He's the talk of the Discord in the Heisman voice chat. He was a conversation for over an hour. He is the guy who can move the pulse one way or the other. And if you're going to buy into Luther Burden, you do it today. You don't do it in September. If you don't think he's going to be good, it's probably decent time to get out of him as well, because there's going to be people like me who are willing to buy into him.
And you said it for RJ Harvey, and you said it with Luther Burden and Jackson Dart. There's the blurbs coming out about his leadership skills already showing through.
Greatest player ever, according to some model.
But all 3 of them, they are garnering that hype. Yeah. And I think the RJ Harvey trades, they make sense because people maybe feel like they missed out on them. Jackson Dart trades make sense because somebody traded into that late first, early second. I need a quarterback. I'm going to get Jackson Dart. But boom, he goes the pick before me. Now I'm willing to pay a little bit more to get him. Luther Burden, he's in that no man's land of wide receiver value in the second round, but he is the talk of the town, like you mentioned. So it makes sense that those 3 guys are the most traded. Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Noel, the least traded. And we saw it on our mock draft episode, the comments. There were several. You guys didn't take Jalen Noel in the 3rd? Yeah. So he probably slipped in a lot of drafts.
Yep.
People took him. And wow, that's a steal. I'm not moving him.
Yeah.
And the rest of the league, they probably didn't want him. They still don't want him.
Exactly it. Like there are rookies, like this is the rookie draft show, to where I'll wake up and be like, hey, I want to try to get some more rostership with him. Jalen Noel's just going to be a guy who's probably 30th on that list. And it's not because I think he's going to be terrible. It's just, he's just not a guy that I'm willing to go out and be like, I want to go and send out 10 trade offers for that guy today.
And then with Shedeur Sanders, well, it's going to be very difficult to acquire him.
It is.
He was going.
Yep.
Very difficult. And then the last group I want to talk about here, Caleb Johnson, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Cam Skattebo, all right around 100 to 110 trades from that May 1st to May 11th with a few of those filters on. Is there anything from where they were going in rookie drafts that stands out to you as to why they might be some of the more traded rookies?
I think they're more easily attainable. They're like right below the elite set. So you have Egbuka, who is just right below, Hunter and Tet. You have Caleb Johnson, who is just right underneath the other running backs. Cam Scatabo is the guy to where Tyrone Tracy's ahead of him, right? I mean, it's not going to take a lot for him to really. I mean, one practice highlight, all of a sudden he goes up 2 rounds ADP on Underdog. It's going to happen. And Matthew Golden, I don't know about Matthew Golden, how he has so many trades, to be honest, but I've kind of not wanted to have any rostership of him for a while.
So here was my thought with those guys. Outside of Igbokwe, Caleb Johnson, he's not the flavor of the week. He's kind of moving down. He's always at that 112, 201. Mm-hmm. Maybe somebody doesn't want to grab him, but they do because of the value. Matthew Golden, and this is me. I'm speaking from experience. He slipped in a lot of drafts, and I happened to be there, and I took the first round receiver. Cam Scatabo, he slipped in a lot of, I'm seeing him go 207, 208, 209 in a lot of recent drafts right now. But again, these are all probably guys that managers saw them fall to a certain point and said, they're a heck of a value. I can't let them fall anymore. So when they got a decent offer, they're like, okay, I'm willing to move off of these guys at that price because I didn't love them, but the value in my mind was too good to pass up on.
That's fair. No, I completely get that. I want to ask you, so the last question's about like, hey, which rookies are we wanting to have more of or less of? Honestly, I don't have a lot. I've talked about how much I like Tet a lot more than I did during the draft, so I'm willing to get more than him, but it's hard to get Tet. And the other one's Luther Burden, which we've talked about 100 times. So I'm going to switch this up on you. I didn't tell you this, but I've been thinking about this today. I need you to talk me into why to trade for a couple of these players. Okay?
I'm going to talk you into it?
You're going to talk me into why I should try to get more. Matthew Golden is the first one. Especially after the Jaden Reed comments that came out. No, he is still the we don't believe in wide receiver ones, but he is still our wide receiver one. Talk me into Matthew Golden.
I said I took him because he slipped. So I'm trying to talk myself into him, but first round draft capital, kind of a wide open wide receiver room. Well-coached team. Hopefully they get a little bit more efficient and a little bit more volume in the passing game. There was a lot of hope there, but honestly, I have nothing concrete. Like I am the analytics guy. I am a very data-driven person, and there's not a lot from a metric standpoint where you look at Matthew Golden and you say, this is that dude. But the NFL liked him. It wasn't just the Packers. Apparently, other people had first-round grades on him, and they're going to give him that shot. I'd much rather prefer Golden in a situation like Green Bay than when the Cardinals were on the clock. Mm-hmm. We talked about this during the draft show. I was like, I don't want a wide receiver to go there.
Yep.
So the Packers, it's an okay situation where things could really open up for him. But again, if anybody wants to come my way and throw a 26 or 27 first for Matthew Golden, I'll definitely consider it, but that's getting accepted.
Okay. One more. Tre Harris. There's points to where I will select him because I'm at the 208, 209. There's a clear tier break after him, and he's the last big name there, so I'll click on him there. But why should I be more willing to take him at the 205, the 204, somewhere around there?
Tied to an elite quarterback. It goes back to the coaching, the culture. You look at...
Didn't we say, just play a little devil's advocate real quick, didn't we not like that whole offense all last season because of of this coaching and the culture, and they were going to be a run-first team? And are we really getting off that and we're being like, no, we did not want the number one wide receiver in that offense last year, but now we're completely okay getting the number 2 wide receiver in that offense this year.
I think part of it is because we saw what a wide receiver could do in that offense, and they are willing to feed their weapons. And Ladd McConkey, he was able to produce. When you look at Tre Harris, he is not a guy that's going to need a ton of targets. He's gonna have to make the plays. He's going to have to go out there and he's going to have to step up. But who's he going to beat out for that wide receiver 2 position? And they spent the top 55 draft capital on him. He's got to beat out Quentin Johnston, 107-year-old Mike Williams, who might play a game and a half, and I still have a lot of Mike Williams rostered. So I like Mike Williams just in general, but it's gonna be very tough moving forward. But I don't think he's going to need a ton of opportunities with the big play potential. And I know you can, a lot of people saying, well, his yards per route run in college, it's a fake yards per route run, the way it was achieved and all that, blah, blah, blah. I still like Tre Harris. I liked him pre-draft, and I'm not going to get away from that mid-second round value on him now. Now, what gets difficult is whenever you have Tre Harris, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden, all available for the pickings. We just did this.
Mm-hmm.
I have the luxury, because of just the sheer volume of leagues I'm in, I can split them up. But if you're in one or two leagues and you're looking at those guys, I don't think I could go Tre Harris in that situation over a Higgins or a Burden. But like the big play potential, I talked about it through every pre-NFL draft, mock draft, of why I was taking him early to mid-second, and I still like Tre. Still like him.
Okay. That's all that I wanted. Just why you try to talk me into those two. That's what I needed.
But here's the thing. Neither of those were like glowing endorsements.
No, I know. Dude, well, once you get to the second round, it's really, really rough this year. It just is. That 201, 202, it's fine. We like the players there. You get to the 203, you have to sell yourself really, really hard on these players.
Yeah, it's like I said, if I were relying on that commission check for selling those two players to you, I wouldn't be feeding my family this week.
Probably not.
Because it's not very convincing, but that's why they slip in a lot of drafts. And there is that, like you said, and a lot of people question them. Well, not a lot. Some people question it. You don't get all these blurbs about Matthew Golden, but Travis Hunter, now on NFL's X, he's the banner.
It matters. The people will act like it. That doesn't matter. That does. It 100% moves the market.
He was in that post. The woman shared it. A gentleman, fantastic kid. I'm going to be buying his jersey. I'm a Jaguars fan now. And people ate that
Of course they did. Yep.
They loved it. Luther Burden, I honestly don't have a lot of him. And we've talked about...
Oh, I have so much.
We've talked about him. And I think for the most part, I have leaned Jaden Higgins and Tre Harris for the most part, but Luther Burden, he's one of those guys, if he slipped enough in rookie drafts and you see maybe he went a little bit below market and somebody took him because he was the value, like we talked about previously, maybe they're not completely sold on him because it is a crowded situation in Chicago. So explore those opportunities. I would like to have more Shedeur Sanders.
Same.
You can't do it now.
Nope. No. I would like to have more of him. I'd like some more Tootin, to be honest. Where he was going, I had a hard time selecting him there. And so people pretty much were always willing to take Tootin before I was.
And it was that, but also, and I talked about this pre-NFL draft, post-NFL draft, where was I moving up from? I was moving from the middle to late second to try to get to the 201, 202, 203. And I certainly wasn't taking two in there, but he was going in that range I moved up from. So it was certainly challenging. All right. So this 15-minute episode, just under 30 minutes. But Mitch, do you have any other thoughts here? It's such a fascinating topic, but it is so challenging to get trades involving rookies done right after you hit select. And before I turn it over to you, I said this in the VC over on the DD Fantasy Football Heisman chat. I said, it's like when my son just got a new toy last week and he brought it home. It was like these little jets, like from Marshalls. They were like $6. And the little sister wanted to play with one. And he said, I don't want you to play with this because it's my new toy. And then he actually packed all of them up, and because she wanted to play with one, He said, nope, nobody's playing with him. That's what it's like after somebody drafts a rookie.
A little bit. It's really
Let
close.
me have them for a little bit. Let me play with them for a little bit. They're my new toy. You're not getting them.
That's pretty good. I like that a lot. No, the only thing I was going to add is I did bring up startups earlier. If you want to join one, join the community, get in the Discord. There is a startup happening. I swear we have 2 a week happening. They're constant. It's just going to happen more and more now that the rookie drafts are finishing up.
All right. Make sure you hit that like button. Any other topics that you folks want to hear, discussed? We try to pull things that are being heavily discussed in the Discord, on X, on Reddit. But if you drop them in the comments below, topics that you want either on the weekly episode of Dynasty Theory with me, Mitch, and Dan, or on these shorter episodes of Trending Fantasy with just me and Mitch, please let us know. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. For Mitch Sorensen, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks.